Hey everybody, welcome to Camel City Chat. I'm John McPherson and I am here with, am I allowed to say friend?
Yeah, you can say friend.
We've known each other for a couple years, but I want to make sure. I don't want to just assume something here. I am here with my friend, the Reverend Dr. Gary Chapman, resident of Winston-Salem, which I don't think a lot of people always know that. We're in your office at Calvary Baptist Church, and just kind of excited to be here. I always enjoy having you on anything that I do, and you're always so accommodating. It all goes back to a client of mine that's told you, I guess he's an okay kid, you ought to, or guy, you ought to talk to him. So the Reverend Dr. Chapman is here with us, and we're going to talk all we can about Winston-Salem. You've written a book or two, right?
Yeah, I've written a few books.
Or a few books. Okay, we're going to talk about that, and just I'm just really excited you're taking the time to spend with us today.
Well, thank you, John. I'm glad to be with you.
Well, and you know, it's always fun to catch up with you. As I was kidding with you on the when we got here and we're setting up, my friend Elsa's with us today, and I'm like, well, so this is where the writing studio is back in this neighborhood, and this is where the neighborhood he lives in. But I can't show you the house. I mean, it's secret, or something like that. But you live in Winston-Salem and have for many years. So the first question is, where are you from and how long you been in Winston?
I grew up in the little town of China Grove.
I know where that is.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's not the one the Doobie Brothers sang about. Right. But I came to Winston-Salem in 1967. So we've been here a long time.
I can tell you how many years that is. 54 years.
Okay. And I've been on the staff here at Calvary. April the 1st will be 50 years.
Really?
50 years, yeah.
So, so who was pastor when you came here 50 years ago?
Mark Courts.
Right. And, my grandfather in Alton, Illinois, knew who Mark was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is back in the 80s,
okay.
or maybe even the 70s. So when we moved to Winston-Salem in 77, and Grandpa came to visit us, it was, I want to go by there, or that. But, because he knew in Alton how wonderful Mark was.
Yeah, what's his name?
My grandfather?
Yeah.
Elmer McPherson.
Okay.
So the only way you'd know Elmer is that he did have to have someone hand him a nitrogen pill in the front row of First Baptist when he visited one time. I think he went down to First Baptist, and he's a good Baptist man, went to a lot of churches and stuff, and so it's like he grabbed the heart and someone, grabbed a nitrogen pill, a doctor did or something, and he was okay then.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, but
good.
So Elmer was actually, the funny thing is my grandfather worked the railroad and things like that, but later in life he got into real estate.
Oh,
so,
okay.
When I decided to be, I've got the old article. He was Rookie of the Year at 70.
Oh,
yeah,
all right.
For Wolf Realty in Alton, Illinois.
Wonderful.
So now let's see, my second oldest cousin is, and I am, and then my second cousin is as well too. So there's three of us in
carrying on the legacy.
Trying to, I guess. With today's, you don't want to sell your house, do you? By the way,
no.
Right, so the second question is, where do you and your wife like to eat around town?
Oh, well, we go to the Carriage House.
All right.
Quite often, and Village Tavern.
Right.
Those are probably our two favorite ones, are the ones we go to most often.
Okay.
But we've sampled a lot of places.
Of course, you have to. There's you get in the car from here, and you're stone's throw from probably 20 restaurants too. So the third question I always ask people is, what do you like to do here? And this can be pre-pandemic or post-pandemic. What do you like to do in Winston-Salem?
What I do as a hobby is I cut kudzu.
Do you have kudzu here over there?
In our backyard, there's a creek, and
Right.
there's kudzu.
Right.
So in the spring and summer, I go down 2 or 3 mornings a week, early in the morning, and spend an hour cutting kudzu.
Right.
Love it. It's out in the woods.
It's
got
to be. Oh yeah, it's got to be very, very nice to do that. Of course, we used to have the K&S over on Peters Creek Parkway.
Yeah.
And, they'd come in once every 2 or 3 years, and they'd burn the whole hill down, and it'd be blank, and, you'd start to see where the gophers were living and all that stuff, and these huge, huge animals come out, who knows what it was, and then it'd just go right back. Kudzu is horrible. You want me to plant some bamboo back there to really make it interesting for you?
No, I don't want bamboo.
All right, so
Carol and I also love just walking in Old Salem. We used to live close to Old Salem, over on Granville Drive, when our kids were little, when we first moved here. And I actually taught a class at Salem College once. So it's just the quietness of the place and, the history, and we just love walking there.
So, all right, let's go back. We're 1967, obviously, moving to Winston-Salem. When did you and your wife get married?
1961.
Okay. So you've been married 6 years. You moved to Winston-Salem. Obviously, you're coming here for this job.
Actually, no. I came here. I taught at what was then called Piedmont Bible College.
Right, which is now
Carolina
University. Right.
And I was the associate pastor at Salem Baptist.
Okay.
When Dr. Stevens was still the pastor there. He was pastor there for many, many, many years. And I worked with their young people, and I directed Marywood Camp, which they own and operated in the summertime. So, yeah, and I taught at the university there for 3 years before I came out here.
All right.
Yeah.
And, Piedmont Bible College, of course, now then it became Piedmont International University and now Carolina. A lot of people don't know that is a huge online school.
It is. Yeah.
And they are continuing to make strides. I actually have visited them. I'm at some point, I've decided that my Universal Life Church doctorate that I paid $25 for, probably I ought to take a few more classes. Hey, I can do weddings. I've done like 40, sir.
Okay.
But, maybe put some, because I was elected, I'm honorable, and then I got the Reverend Doctor. I mean, this is a good title here. But no, I mean, they are just a wonderful university.
Yeah, they are.
And they're really making strides under their current president.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to probably try and get him on the show. It's just... we have so many gems in this, and this is why I actually started this show, is to talk about people around here. But, when you've come over here, when did you go, gosh, there's really like one love language? No, maybe there could be two. When did you finally go, hey, there's 5 love languages and I want to write a book?
That grew out of my counseling. I had been here a number of years before I wrote that book. But in the context of counseling, what I would find is that couples would sit here and one of them would say, maybe a wife, it could be the husband, I just don't feel any love coming from them. And they would say, I don't understand that. I do this and this and this. Why would you not feel loved? And I knew people were sincere and they were missing each other. And I heard similar stories over and over and over. And finally I thought, there's got to be a pattern to this. So what I did was read several years of notes that I made when I was counseling and ask myself, when someone said, I feel like my spouse doesn't love me, what did they want? What were they complaining about? And their answers fell into 5 categories. And I later called them the 5 love languages. I started using that in my counseling. That if you want her to feel loved, you've got to speak love in her language. And you've got to do the same for him. And I would help couples discover their love language, challenge them to go home and try it. And sometimes they'd come back in 3 weeks, John, and say, this is changing everything. The whole climate's different. So then I started using with small groups of couples. Same thing happened. And probably 5 years later, I thought, if I could put this concept in a book, write it in the language of the common person so everybody can understand it, maybe I could help a lot of couples that I would never have time to see in my office. So the book was published in 1992.
Okay.
So it's been out now, getting on 30 years soon.
And only, what, million copies sold, right?
Well, 15 million in English, and it's been translated and published in over 50 languages around the world.
And I told you the rumor that I heard is that the Chinese government requires that every person before they get married has to read your book. You said that that's not true, but you sure sell a lot of copies there.
It is very popular in China, yes, but I've never heard that it's required.
Yeah, I can't remember who it is that told me that. I'll have to go back and look at that. I told my wife I was going to see you today, and of course, you know what she said. She said, you ought to read his book. And I'm like, I've read his book. She goes, well, you ain't practicing it, son. So, but, I'm about all of them. I think I'm words of affirmation and gifts or something like that, and she is services.
Okay.
She wants me to do everything. So if I do that, she's happy.
Yeah, well, that's why I took the trash out before I came to my office this morning.
You know what I do? Every morning, even when I go out of town, I'll set the coffee up for her to make her coffee. Oh. But I take her coffee every morning in bed. A friend of ours is just like, why do you do that? I took her coffee on my birthday morning, It's like, because I know that if I do that, it makes my wife's day better.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And, then she'll still be mad at me the rest of the day. But at least I tried, I can say I tried. So you write this book, and it's life-changing, as you said, for many people. But, and we'll come back and talk about probably each love language and things as much as you want to. But then I had you on my show because you did the 5 love languages in the workplace.
Yeah.
And then, we talked about your writing partner, Ed Shaw, who is just a phenomenal guy. Who does what he did? Your wife has Alzheimer's, and you quit your job and then dive everything you can. I practicing up for this to make sure that I could, do these things because Stabler wasn't going to be here today. I actually did about 40 minutes with my dad yesterday. And so I've got some of that stuff, and we talked about how he did similar stuff with my mom and just stayed home and did that. But there's a lot of passion in all these things.
Yeah.
What are all the different pockets of love languages that you've discovered after discovering the love languages?
Well, first of all, I used it, in the marriage relationship,
right,
because that's where it grew out of. Then I wrote the 5 love languages of children. It's for parents, because for parents, the question is not, do you love your children? The question is, do your children feel loved?
Right.
And I wrote that one with Dr. Ross Campbell, who is a psychiatrist. He's dead now, but he was a psychiatrist for 30 years working with children. Same 5 languages. And each child has a primary love language. And if you don't speak their primary language, they won't feel loved, even though you love them. And then was the 5 love languages of teenagers, because so many parents said, we read your book on children, man, it made a difference. But now they're teenagers, and we're doing the same thing, and it doesn't seem to be working.
Teenagers just don't work, do they?
And they asked me, does the love language change when they get to be teenagers? And I said, I don't think the love language changes, but you've got to learn new dialects.
Right.
Because what you've been doing, they consider childish. So you got to find different ways of expressing those love languages. So it went from there, to single adults, because so many of them said, I know you wrote your book for couples, but I read it. It's helped me in all my relationships. So I wrote the 5 love languages of singles. And then out of that, just several others. The one what you mentioned, keeping love alive as memories fade, the 5 love languages and the Alzheimer's journey. Wrote one for blended families. I wrote that one with Ron Deal, who probably has spent more time helping blended families than anyone in the country, because the dynamics, and the emotional dynamics in a blended family are different. And so that, and then one for people that have special needs children and how that works with them. And I wrote that with a lady who has a special needs child, has worked in that area for years. And then how the love languages helps when you lose a baby, the death of a baby. I wrote that with a lady who lost 2 babies and has worked now for 10, 12 years in a ministry like that. So, most of it is just people have surfaced and expressing a need of how this applies in other relationships. So it just kind of had its own growth through the years.
The one when we had you on Real Estate Radio and we're talking about the 5 love languages in business, of course, I was immediately to go, so tell me about the physical touch in business. I mean, obviously it changes with different things, but, let's start. So what are the love languages? Okay,
one of them is words of affirmation.
All right. You're doing a good job. So.
Just affirming them verbally. One of them is acts of service, doing something for them. Cooking meals, washing dishes,
your wife and my wife.
Floors. Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Okay.
One of them is gifts. It's universal to give gifts as an expression of love. One is quality time.
Okay.
Giving them your undivided attention. I don't mean sitting there watching television together.
Or what's this one? No, wait. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm here with you, sir. Yeah. I'm listening. Yeah, no. Go ahead. Yeah.
Not that.
Yeah. Right.
Quality time. And then physical touch.
All right, I'm putting myself in airplane mode because I know I buzzed a second ago.
And the basic idea, of course, is that out of the 5, we each have a primary language.
Okay.
And if you don't speak the primary, they won't feel loved, even though you're speaking the other languages.
What if we have all 5?
Well, if you have all 5, it means...
I've been accused of being a narcissist, so is that... Yeah.
If you have all 5, it means anything people do makes you feel loved.
Okay. All right. And so as you go through this, now let's talk about, like, with, you've created this now. I mean, it's become it's become a worldwide thing. I mean, are you going to do, now that we're on Mars, we're going to do 5 love languages on Mars, because anytime you find a need, you address it specifically to that group. So do you, with what's going on right now, how do we make sure that we're really, really addressing those needs? Because, it's weird.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I wrote a little book in the middle of the summer, or the middle of the pandemic, called 5 Simple Ways to Strengthen Your Marriage When You're Stuck at Home Together.
Right.
And I wrote it primarily for this reason. Those that had a fairly healthy marriage going into the pandemic have probably done okay. In fact, some of them have even enhanced their relationship.
Right.
But those who were troubled, fractured before the pandemic, are really struggling now. So one of the first things I suggest in that little book, it's just a small little book, why don't you call a truce on throwing verbal bombs? Because when you're troubled, you throw verbal bombs because in your mind, it's your fault, your fault. And those bombs explode.
Can I call my wife? We need to have a session right now. We'll just videotape it. Right.
So, yeah, if you just say, okay, we got problems, just call a truce.
Right.
And let's not throw verbal bombs for a month. But let's replace them once a week and just give an affirmation.
Okay.
It's something you appreciate.
Right.
If you do it a month, you'll probably do it 2 months because it's kind of nice not to be shot. It's kind of nice to hear words.
Right.
Then you got to tear down the wall that's already there in a troubled marriage, and that means apologizing. Asking yourself honestly, where am I failing? By nature, each of us, it's their fault. If they would change, it'd be better. Okay, but none of us are perfect. So let's own up to our own problems, and let's apologize for our part in this. Maybe they're 95% of the problem, you're only 5. You can tear down 5% of the wall by apologizing. And then they either choose to forgive you or not. But if they forgive you, the wall's not as thick now. If both of you apologize, now you get rid of the wall, then the love languages can really kick in.
Okay.
Because now we've been honest about our failures. We've apologized. We've forgiven each other. Now let's learn how to love each other.
Okay.
And this really can transform a marriage.
Okay. All right, well, let's take a little break. All right, you've got a website, I'm sure, so I'm going to put that in here, and then we'll get a glass of water and come back and talk about some more, okay?
Okay,
All right,
very
thanks.
good.
Welcome back. Here with Dr. Chapman, and just kind of chatting about where is this like a manuscript that no one's supposed to know about right here?
It's a new one that's going to come up in April. That's my memoirs.
I'll just go ahead and put this right here. Oh, sorry. Speaking about you, okay? And I kidded about my relationship. Of course, if you ever meet anybody with a perfect relationship, they're lying to you. But did this come out of your marriage? I mean, were you and your wife having issues, or sorry to be so personal, but obviously you're a man of faith. God put this into your life, but there had to have been something else too.
My wife and I had a lot of problems in the early years of our marriage. I mean, really hard problems. When you're in love, you don't think you'll have any problems when you're in love, but that only lasts a couple of years. You come down off the high. If that long,
right.
And we had our differences, and we didn't know how to solve conflicts
right.
because you don't think you'll have any when you're in love. And so we argued with each other and said hateful things, and after a while, you lose the positive feelings and you have negative feelings. And I remember, and I was at the time, I was in seminary studying to be a pastor.
Right.
And it was pretty miserable in my marriage. And I was saying to God, this is not going to work. There's no way I can be this miserable and get up and preach hope to people. And I remember the day that I finally said to God, I don't know what else to do. I've done everything I know to do, and it's not getting any better. As soon as I said that, there came to my mind a visual image of Jesus on his knees washing the feet of his disciples. And I just sensed God saying to me, that's the problem in your marriage. You do not have the attitude of Christ towards your wife. Hit me like a ton of bricks, because I remember what Jesus said when he stood up. He said to his disciples, I'm your leader, and in my kingdom, this is the way you lead. The leader serves. And I knew that was not my attitude. My attitude was like, I know how to have a good marriage. If you listen to me, we'll have one, woman, And she wouldn't listen to me, and I blamed her. But that day I got a different message. And I said, God, forgive me. With all of my study in Greek and Hebrew and theology, I've missed the whole point. And I said, please give me the attitude of Christ toward my wife. In retrospect, it's the greatest prayer I ever prayed about my marriage, because God changed my heart and gave me a desire to serve her. 3 simple questions really made this practical. Simple questions. 1, honey, what can I do to help you? What can I do to make your life easier? How can I be a better husband? And when I asked those questions, she was willing to give me answers, okay?
On the third one, how long did it take before she breathed?
Well, I asked these, and it kind of worked my way into these,
Right.
but here's what happened. She gave me answers. Now, looking back on it, I knew nothing about love languages, but looking back on it, her answers were telling me how to love her.
Right.
And so it didn't happen overnight, but within 3 months, she started asking me those 3 questions. What can I do to help you? How can I make your life easier? How can I be a better wife? Mm-hmm. We've been walking this road a long time now.
Right.
When I'm serving her and she's serving me. And I think this is the key to marriage.
You're coming up on 60 years now.
Yeah. God never ordained marriage to make people miserable.
Right.
We're here to serve each other. And when you do it like this, you both become winners. And then you can turn and help other people. Mm-hmm. So, there is a spiritual dimension to this. I mean, I had a man say to me some time ago, he said, Gary, I read your book on love languages. My wife and I took the quiz, and she tells me her love language is acts of service. But I'll tell you and her, if it's going to take my washing dishes and my vacuuming floors for her to feel love, she can forget that.
Are they still together?
I don't know. I don't know. But I said to him,
I thought it was yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am is all you're supposed to know going into marriage.
I said to him, that's your choice, because love is a choice. Now, falling in love is an emotion, but love for the long haul is a choice. You choose an attitude, I'm here to serve you, and then you find out how to do that in a meaningful way. I said, but if you want to live with a wife who has what I call an empty love tank, that's your choice. I said,
Familiar with a love tank, that's something that, I'm not a good reader, which is surprising, I know, for everybody with book talk and stuff. But I listened to it and walking down the aisle doing groceries or whatever, and kept listening to it before we had you on the show for the other one. And it's the love tank, the love tank, the love tank. You beat that one home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I said, I much prefer to live with a wife who has a full love tank.
Right.
That's I've lived with both. Same woman, but early years, empty love tank, later years, full love tank. I said, so, man, washing the dishes, vacuuming the floors, taking out the trash, man, to have a happy woman, what's the deal, But there's a spiritual dimension, because by nature, we're all selfish. We all want to do what we want to do, and we want you to love me, And if we don't feel love, we say to them, I'm out of here. You're not meeting my needs. We're selfish. We're self-centered. God changes the heart. Love is the opposite of selfishness. It's living for the benefit of other people.
I want to ask you a question about faith, but before I do that, you have 2 kids, both grown, both married.
Both married.
Wonder what it's like for them when the spouse looks at them and goes, you ought to read your dad's book. Have you ever gotten that phone call, Dad?
No, I have not. I've not heard that one from them. Fortunately, they both have really good marriages. They apply this in their marriage.
Right.
And with their children. My daughter has 2 children.
Right.
My son and his wife haven't been able to have children. But, loving their children, we're blessed. There is a verse in the Bible that says something to the effect, there's no greater joy than to hear that your children walk in truth. And it's been very encouraging to us. They both are loving people, reaching out to people, and using their, she's a medical doctor. And with whatever gifts you have, you serve other people, and that's encouraging to see.
Now with Laura, I know I've accomplished something. I've got this beautiful 6-year-old daughter that is the life of every room she walks into, and the light too, and it makes you real proud when your kids do something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
Even if it's a drawing.
Yeah, yeah, so, absolutely.
I've never asked this question to someone on Camel City Chat, but I feel that it's very appropriate. When did that phone ring? When did you get the call? How did you find Christ?
It was really as a child. I was probably, I was 10 years old.
Right.
And I know people question sometimes whether children understand what they're doing. And I certainly didn't understand the whole gamut of what it meant to be a follower of Christ.
Right.
But in my heart, because we went to church on a regular basis, and I never felt this until I was 10 years old. And I just sensed, God is calling me to give my life to Him and to follow Christ, And I resisted it at first because I thought, I thought I
want to play with my friends.
Yeah. But But and the following Sunday, I just yielded to that because I said, God, yeah. I mean, I would have probably said I was a Christian because I went to church. You know, a lot of people think they're Christian because they go to church, but they've never invited Christ into their lives. You know, never accepted what He did on the cross for them, and I did, and it really, you know, has directed the whole course of my life. And by the time I was in high school, very active in various activities in the church, and really sensed when I was a senior in high school that God was calling me into some kind of ministry. And the only two things I knew you could do vocationally was, one, you could be a pastor or you could be a missionary.
Right.
And I always thought of missionaries as being in the jungle.
Right.
And I don't like snakes, so I figured maybe I should be a pastor.
Yeah. Where did so you China Grove, obviously, right? So did you go to high school there?
I went to Landis High School. You know, those two little towns are very close together.
Okay.
We lived in the middle of the two towns.
Okay, and then where did you go to college?
I went to Moody Bible Institute first in Chicago.
Okay.
And it was just a 3-year school, just an institute.
Right.
And then I went to Wheaton College, which is just outside Chicago, and finished my degree in anthropology there. Yeah.
All right. And I just have to ask this. Where'd your brother-in-law go to school?
Brother-in-law.
Or teach? Where'd your brother-in-law teach? What was that university? Just so we can put a plug in for it real quick.
Say, I've got several brother-in-laws.
3,333 feet above sea level. What was the name of that school, sir?
He went to Appalachian
Don't
State
you
University.
wish you'd gotten your education at that fine institution?
And he later taught there as well.
Yeah, okay, just making sure. Yeah. So speaking of teaching, all right, so obviously you've been on the sermon as a full-time pastor. On the pulpit as a full-time pastor. You do occasionally fill in here at Calvary when the senior pastor takes some probably well-needed vacation. But the way I met you was some people that go to church here were asking me one day when we were talking. I helped them sell their house, and they said, "Well, do you know Dr. Chapman?" And I'm like, "Dr. Chapman? Why do I know that name?" And they're like, 5 Love Languages. Oh, I know the book. Yeah. And like, well, you know, he lives in Winston. And of course, that was like, what? And so then the Harkeys, the two of the sweetest people in the world. So we know we're friends with him. And I'm like, oh, really? Well, yeah, okay, friends with him. Yeah, in fact, and they pull out this thing, and it is your monthly newsletter that you send to your close friends. And this is a prayer request. Yeah. And you say, will you please pray for me? Because I'm going to be, and of course, pre-pandemic, I mean, literally, if I may, this is, you know, that's his schedule, and it's booked. But that is for right now. When you were traveling, where all were you going? And where are you at now? Because you were really happy when I got in to see, because you and I get to catch up for a few minutes of you're finally able to start moving around again. Yeah. So what's going on with that? And tell us about the teaching and the seminars you do and how people can get, you know, besides going to your website to get more information, why they should.
Well, you know, I've been really grateful for the church because they've allowed me to go other places and minister. They kind of see me as their representative out there.
You're one of the best things Calvary has. I mean, you're an asset.
Well, it's been very, very encouraging to have their support and their prayers. But I really have gone all over the country. I focus on several things. One, I do 15 Saturday seminars, marriage seminars, all over the country. And these are put together by my publisher, Moody Publishers in Chicago. Mm-hmm. So we typically in a church, and we'll have anywhere from 500 to 2,000 people that show up for those Saturday events. And I really feel like those are most impactful because I have them there, you know, 5 different sessions. They're there for the day. They've got a book to go home and work through. It's not just the love language. It's a book called The Marriage You've Always Wanted, and the seminar is based on that. Mm-hmm. And then I do a fair number of military bases.
I noticed you have a 307 Logistics Task Force recognizing you and your family. Yeah,
this started at Fort Bragg many years ago, and since then I've just been on a lot of military bases here and in other countries as well.
That's a tough life.
It really is, and I have a special edition of the love languages for military. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we talk about in that edition is how do you speak these love languages when you're deployed? Mm-hmm. I'll just give you an example, because we talked to scores and scores of families who use it, and we got ideas from them, because the military's been using the original book for years. But she said, you know, his language is physical touch. Now, how can you do that half a world away? So she said, I knew that was his language, so I put my hand on a sheet of paper. I traced my hand, and I mailed it to him with a note that said, "Put your hand on my hand. I want to hold your hand." When he came home, he said, "Gary, every time I put my hand on that paper, I felt her." It's not literal, it's emotional, but that's what we're talking about, the emotional touch.
There's a kid's book called The Kissing Hand,
Okay.
about a raccoon, I guess, that kisses the kid's hand and says, whenever you want it, put it against your face or whatever. And we read that to Laura. Well, then the author was at Bookmarks.
Oh.
And so she got to meet the author. And Laura kids around about that. You are absolutely correct. It's the thought, it's the emotion, it has nothing to do with the actual physicalness of it.
Yeah.
Right?
So I do a fair amount of military bases, and then I've done a fair amount of businesses. Two groups, YPO, Young Presidents Organizations, an international group, and then EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. It's also an international group. And they normally will have me come in. They have monthly meetings, but they'll do a couples event and have me come in and do the love language for them.
Right.
And then, as you mentioned, the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace, which is simply taking the love languages to work. So a fair number of businesses have had me come in and share how this works in the business setting.
Right.
Because what we discovered in the business setting is that 70% of the people in this country who have a job say they feel little to no appreciation coming from the people with whom and for whom they work.
Right.
64% of the people who leave a job and go to another job say they left primarily because they didn't feel appreciated. So
and they
this
got
is
attention
huge.
to go to the new job. Yeah, I believe that.
So this is huge. And Paul White, who is my co-author on that book, is a psychologist who spent 20 years working with business leaders. So he's kind of leading the charge on that. But I do speak on that periodically as well.
Right. And I would think Zoom has been beneficial for you in some way too, because you can drop into a small group or whatever and work with them. So have you been utilizing that?
I have. From the middle of March until the end of last year, all my in-person things were canceled.
Right.
And many of them went to online. Some of them rescheduled for this coming year. But I probably have spoken to more people in Zoom conferences than I would have if I had been in person, just all over the country.
Have you thought about doing like almost a video seminar in a sense? Because,
well, I have. Okay. I did. As a matter of fact, I did a date night on 2 things, what I call the 2 essentials to long-term healthy relationships. Right. One is keeping love alive, and that's where we do the love languages, and the other is dealing effectively with your failures, and that's where we talk about how to apologize effectively and how to forgive. But I did that, and we had my publisher put that together, and they sold 6,600 codes. So you double that for a couple, that's what, 14,000 people on one night.
How does that make you feel?
It's just very encouraging, to know that you can use technology like that to touch so many lives, and they're all over the country. So yeah, I just, I never thought I would enjoy doing Zoom, but I really do, because they're real people out there, and they're listening. It's not like, I much prefer being in person so you can talk to people at the breaks and all that.
Yeah, they come up and ask questions, get an autographed book and things like that.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I'm in the National Association of Realtors Leadership Academy. There's 25 of us from all over we got a guy in Guam, but there's 25 of us from all over the United States. And I'd love to be in person because, you just build these relations. Yeah. And almost like church, we have a small group. There's 5 of us together. And it does leave a little bit to be desired, but at least we're doing it. But I just, it's a struggle. But, I mean, with what you're doing, I would think that it's just, as you said, it's the ability to touch even more people. Yeah. And, of course, you've got a book and it supplements your income, obviously, but I also know you well enough to know that you'd probably do some of this for free just to save marriages because you love people and your faith in God and things like that. Yeah.
I do a lot of what I do is without charge. You know, I mean, my heart's to help people.
Then why did Anita make me pay? Anita is the greatest, isn't she?
She is. Yeah. So, she's been my assistant for several years, and she does a great job.
She does. All right, I want to take one more again, and then I want to come back and ask you just a couple more questions, and if you're okay with that,
sure.
And then we'll get out of your hair and let you get back to doing some work. Okay.
Okay.
Right. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Of course, I'm here with Dr. Chapman. I just wanted to finish up with a couple questions. I always pick with you because it turns out that where you live, I have a neighbor down the street, another neighbor down the street. I sold that neighbor's parents the house next door. They had originally looked at a house behind them, which then got you and I talking one time, and you said, "Oh, well, that's where I write." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So I guess since I'm a realtor, I have to ask this question. So and we didn't know each other back then, so I'll forgive you. But you're at home one day and you notice behind you that there's a open house, and you go to your wife and you said, "Hey, that house is for sale back there." And what's Carolyn say?
Well, I said, "You see that house over there? It's on the other side of the creek."
Yeah. Through the woods.
Yeah, through the woods. I said, if that house ever comes for sale, I would really like to buy it and have a writing house.
And she's wanting you to get your stuff out of the house.
Yeah, she was all for that,
Help you move in.
And 2 weeks later, I looked over there, and there was a for sale sign.
Right.
I said, "Carolyn, that house is for sale." So
Why
I went
are you
over
here?
there,
Yeah.
and I got the number, and I called the realtor and so forth. Turns out, I know the couple.
Right.
I knew the couple. And they were in our church, and they were moving to Kentucky to be with their son, their only son, and retiring. So I went over there, and a little two-bedroom house, and man, this is perfect. It's the end of the development. Look out the window in the woods, and
My wife can make sure I'm there.
yeah. And I said, "Well, what are you going to do with your furniture?" And they said, "Well, we're going to get rid of it because we can't take it with us." I said, "Well, I'll buy the furniture too." So it was just an easy move,
Right.
And it's my writing house, but it's also my studio. I do a weekly radio program,
Right.
a 1-hour program, and then I do a daily 1-minute program that of course, we record all
Right.
these. And so I'm set up to do that there. So yeah, it's just a wonderful little place, that God provided.
And it's evolved because, originally you were probably having to walk through the creek to get there. Now you've, am I correct in that you put some stuff so that it's obviously apparent that you can get from one house to the other?
Well, actually, I don't walk because the creek's getting wider because with the flooding, it gets
Right.
too wide now.
No bridge?
So I drive, no bridge.
Okay.
So I drive over there.
All right.
But no, it's been really an asset.
I've kidded with you. I want to write a book. I don't know what it's about. I'm hoping that God tells me one day, "Hey, John, this would be a good idea." But what's a typical day like for you? So you say you do your let's do the day that you do your radio show.
Yeah.
All right. So what time are you up? And I notice that your Bible looks like it's brand new right here on the end of the desk there. And that's probably, is that the home version? What's the home version look like? So what's a typical day?
Well, if I'm writing, let's take the radio program. I do it on Wednesdays. Every other Wednesday, I record 2 programs at a time. Every other Wednesday. Mm-hmm. So I'm at my writing house. My recorder and producer is in Chicago, and my co-host is in Arizona.
Right.
And so they put it all together, and we're typically calling an author and interviewing an author. So and they put it all together, and it sounds like we're sitting in the same room talking to each other.
Right.
So I do it's on Wednesdays, and it starts at 11 to 1.
Okay.
Is what I do.
So what time are you up usually?
Normally I get up at 6 o'clock.
And you're reading the Bible, I'm assuming, pretty early.
Yeah, I don't leave the house till at least 8 o'clock because I just take my time getting ready, and I spend some time in the scriptures and talking to God and asking Him for wisdom and looking at my schedule for the day and praying for wisdom. So that's the way I begin my day.
So I know you do 3 things, I'm assuming, before you leave the house. We've learned that today. I'm assuming you eat, okay? I'm going to guess on that.
Yeah.
So we do our scripture stuff, and you take out the garbage.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so there we go. All right. All right. So then you're leaving the house at 8 o'clock, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you're coming here.
Usually come to my office.
Long commute, right?
A block or two.
A block or two, right? Yeah. Snow day, you could walk it if you had to.
I could.
All right. So you come in here. Obviously, you get in here. We've got this here. What's the typical day for you? I mean, are you working Calvary at certain times before you go home for the radio show, or counseling, or what all's going on?
Well, the radio is just one day a week, of
Right.
course, for 2 hours. I still do some counseling, and so I have appointments that I make on a regular basis. And then I've got Zoom things that now I've got the Zoom things that I'm doing, and that may be 1 or 2 a day. It depends on the day. And then sometimes I'm reading because you want to keep growing yourself, you know. And then sometimes I'm working a little on a project. But my writing basically has been, through the years, my pattern has been 1 day a week.
Okay.
Thursday is the day that I typically would take as a writing day. And of course, I say to my assistant, if there's an emergency, call me. I'll drop everything and go if it's an emergency. But if it's not an emergency, I'll in the morning and the afternoon I write.
Right.
I don't do it at night. It's just too much for one day. I just morning and afternoon. It takes a good while to write a book that way, but I've never been in a hurry to write the book. I'm just taking a skill. And then all the other days, I'm here in the office and doing the things that need to be done here.
So you came here in '67, and I often talk to people about what Winston was like then compared to Winston now. You've seen our downtown change to a place you'd take your, '67 you might have gone downtown and gotten some shoes or bought some stuff, and then through the '80s you probably didn't go downtown as much, and then now, of course, you'd go have a dinner with your bride downtown and stuff like that. So you've seen where Winston was, you've seen where it's going. Where do you want to see our town go?
I've been very encouraged through the years because I remember the days in '67 when the National Guard was called out on the streets because of the racial tensions that were going on in those days, and I think we made a lot of progress in that area in Winston-Salem. But I hope we can continue to make progress in terms of relationships across racial and cultural lines, because Winston's much more multicultural now than it was then. Have a whole lot of Hispanics now that are here in Winston-Salem. Right. And I think coming to appreciate different cultures, different races, and learning how to work together as a team and encouraging each other and helping each other, this is where life is lived out. It's in relationships, And if we can continue to build friendships and roads of encouragement to each other and understanding each other, because everything rises and falls eventually on the relationships of the people. And technology and all of that, can continue to grow and business-wise and all that. Certainly, I hope that for that and good jobs for people and all of that. But of course, my heart is in relationships because I believe that's where we find our deepest meaning in life is in building relationships and helping people, in whatever way we can. And all of us are different. We have different gifts and different abilities. But if we can use what we have to help other people, it's not only helping them, it's the most satisfying thing you can do for yourself is to serve and help other people.
Thought of something else I want to ask before I ask you the last question, and that is, you work at a church, and religion has changed in the last year, probably more than it has in 20. Sure. How do churches overcome fear of attending, a lackadaisical attitude, depression? What's going on in not only at Calvary, but I'm sure you're talking with other people, because besides probably doing counseling with individuals, you probably talk to other pastors. Yeah. What has to happen?
Well, it's been a challenge, no question about it. It's been a challenge, and there's some churches, of course, that just closed down everything and went totally to online. Some of them aren't doing anything, but others are online with services. And I've been really encouraged with our leadership here in that our services have always been online, even when we didn't have an audience here for a little while. Now for several months we've had an audience here, not full to be sure, it's all limited and spaced, but and then our small groups in the church have also been using online, with each other, and thus staying in touch with each other, which has been really healthy, I think. So I think most churches have adapted, and they're at least keeping in touch with their people in different ways and trying to help those that are really hurting and struggling. I think what's going to be interesting is how things go when we start back and we're able to come back. Some are predicting that people have gotten so used to going to church in their pajamas at home that they may not want to come back. But I think that the human need for community is so deep within us that we want to get back with people, and I don't think that's going to be a problem.
I was fortunate enough to be in 2018 in the North Carolina Leadership Academy with the Realtors, and there were 12 of us, 11 extroverts and 1 introvert. This young lady's name's Christy Hill. She's down in the Jacksonville area. She works a lot of the military stuff down there. she's become an extrovert. She just wants to be around people and hug them now. And I'm like, yes, and it's all because of this.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, all my friends that hate to be hugged, they're like, I'll take a hug now because of that. I mean, even if you were just, it's now, I need touch. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think, and on the love language, if I could go back to that, please don't ever hear me saying you only speak a person's primary love language.
Oh, I know.
No. You give all 5 of them,
right,
because we can feel love in all 5. Just be sure you give heavy doses of the primary so that they genuinely feel love. Then the others, you give you extra credit,
Right. So, you were telling us earlier, how many books are we up to now, total, do you think?
To be honest, I don't know.
That's a good situation to be in. I'm ashamed of you, yeah. See, not 100 yet? Come on.
No.
All right, so with all of that, and with, 15 million just in English, right?
Yeah.
Of one book, we don't know about the others. What do you want to be remembered for?
That's a good question. I have decided what I'd like to have on my tombstone.
Oh, let's hear.
Faithful unto death.
Okay.
I just want to keep going, doing what God has called me to do until I die.
Right.
Because sometimes in old age we mess up, I don't want to mess up. I want to be faithful to the end. But I think, I would hope that people would remember me as one who gave practical ideas on how to have good relationships in marriage and family, because that's my passion. That's where I've invested my life, and most of my books are along those lines. And I hope that the books will live long after I'm gone.
I think you're fine there.
Yeah. I think that's all God requires of any of us. Is just take what you have and what I've given you and the passion I've given you, and in any way you can use it to influence and help other people. And when you do, it's life's deepest satisfaction.
No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And then a needy world awaits your imprint. Come make a difference.
Yeah.
And you're a special person. I feel very lucky to know that if I need something, I can call you, and you are, you have always been, oh, sure, John, I'll do that. And you just care so much about people. And, we know you're doing pretty good on the marriage. 60 years, gosh, come on. Kids, you're just a great man. And I appreciate you taking the time today with me and with everybody on Camel City Chat. The one commercial is with Jeff Smith with Smitty's Notes. He sponsors us, and so I want to make sure everybody checks him out too. But we'll put links to your website so people can go and get more information. I'm going to ask you today if you might sign a couple copies. We're going to try and have a couple contests to get a signed copy of the book from you. So if they like us on Instagram or Facebook or that, so we're going to reward one of your readers with an autographed copy if you're cool with that.
Sure.
I figured you were, and I already knew you were because you've always been so kind. It's just thank you so much for doing this. You're just a really wonderful person.
It was good to be with you, and thanks for what you're doing and just tapping into different parts of the culture and sharing with those that are interested in some of the things that are going on in the city. So thanks for what you're doing.
Appreciate it. We're going to be back next week with more Camel City Chat. Thanks for watching us today.